You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
Can Christians cheer for Venom? Today, we're going to be reviewing Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, and asking whether or not it's okay for Christians to cheer for anti-heroes or nigh villains like him, as well as giving our overall thoughts and a spoiler-filled review for the movie. This episode is primarily for those that are familiar with the movie and some of the comics. We will be going into some of it, so if you've never gotten into the source material, hang in there. We will be diving into some of that as well. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Systematic Geekology, episode number 7. We are the priest to the geeks. By that, we're not saying that we're ordained ministers or anything like that, but rather we mean priests in the biblical sense of being mediators. This isn't a Trojan horse or some kind of trap. We are real geeks looking to explore the theological and philosophical implications in the things that we love. Remember, if you enjoy this episode, you can help support this show and help us continue making more Christian geek content, like our recent after show, where we went over Doctor Who Season 2, episodes 8 and 9, available at patreon.com/systematicgeekology. My name is Joe, and I am a comic book nerd, and I have been recently delving over into the world of sci-fi by binging a YouTube series that a guy created, going over reviews and synopses of each one of the seasons of Star Trek. So I've been binging that, planning on watching the actual shows and movies starting November.
I'm Alex. I'm a college student and a bookworm, and I am currently watching Squid Game. And
is it good?
It's good. Yeah, I'm in episode 4, I think. So
Sweet.
Things are starting to get interesting.
Yeah. So I am Joshua Knoll. I am a aspiring lawyer who is finishing up his degree in biblical studies. Figure that one out. And what's something I do? I have this week spent a lot of time playing Smash Bros. On mute while listening to my Kingdom Hearts playlist because they're adding Sora this week, and I'm getting pumped. That's all.
On TikTok.
I'm excited. It's going to be great. Anyway, so now it's time for the part y'all come here for. We're going to be talking about Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. He's already said that. Y'all have seen the movie or you wouldn't be listening, right? Because we're going to be doing lots of spoilers. So y'all know what we're talking about. We're just going to kind of share some of our thoughts and just kind of talk about things. I'll go ahead and go first. I thought that I was disappointed and not majorly disappointed. It was better than the first movie. But, man. It's one of those where I don't have a huge connection to either of the characters. I know just enough to be dangerous, and I grew up with the 90s Spider-Man TV show, so I have this perspective that they should all be exactly like that, which is not true to the comics, but it's what my brain wants things to be. And I'm just like, that Venom's not right. Venom's supposed to be bad for like 2.5 seasons. What are you doing? So that's where I'm coming at this from. Alex, where are you at with this?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I was confused. I was disappointed and confused with this movie. But the first one, in my opinion, was better. And I was confused because after I finished it, I was left with more questions than answers with how it's just the plot and the storyline didn't have enough development for me. And there's just a lot of random things in there that I was like, okay, but why? Why did that happen? Why does Carnage hate Venom? Much. There's just why? I was not satisfied at all.
And a really awkward love story buddy comedy is like half the movie, and the other half is a serial killer becoming an alien monster, and you're like, what? These two things don't go together.
Yeah, and there was just so many random things in there. Like his girlfriend has voice powers. Like, why does she have those powers? Why is she the only one? And like the cop at the end, he like woke up with blue eyes. Okay, why? I just needed more. I don't know.
Yeah. It suffered from that where like you feel like you're watching a TV show that they were like, how can we make this a movie instead? So they just cut stuff until it's like, this is kind of coherent. Yeah. Joe, where are you at with this one?
Well, to speak to some of the stuff that you had a problem with, Alex, they sat in this weird in-between, right, of totally disregarding the source material in a lot of respects, but also expecting people to understand who these ancillary characters are. Like, Peter Mulligan, the cop, is people who know the comics side of things will know him as Toxin, a future symbiote. Same thing with I can not remember if they did Screech or if they did the other one, but basically two symbiotes from the movie that, or from the comics, that literally almost do the exact same thing. But that's where there's a whole preponderance of backstory in the comics as to why she gets the symbiote, why those powers in particular, the whys and the whats and all of those kinds of things. So they sat in this weird in-between, but the problem is that they didn't want to commit to actually going one direction or the other, nor did they want to commit to a coherent, actual A to B sort of story. They wanted... The problem is that they took what quote-unquote worked out of the first movie and said, oh, let's just do more of that. The problem is that thing that worked in the first movie was the bright light in the midst of darkness of a crappy movie. Like, outside of Tom Holland or Tom Hardy, really, really just doing some incredible stuff, especially when you realize that he's literally talking to himself.
Yeah,
the stuff that he... Good.
No, I was going to say, we talked about this before we started recording, but it felt very much like the problems that I had with Pirates of the Caribbean 4, which was still a decent movie. But the problem was they said, hey, you know what worked with some of those older Pirates of the Caribbean? Jack Sparrow. What if we just made Jack Sparrow the movie? And it's like, yeah, he's the fun part, but it still needs substance. And it's like, a lot of times it's like they forget that as movie directors. Like, this is what people like, so we'll just do that. Well, it would be akin to if Mandalorian season 3 was just, we all watched someone babysit Grogu. Like, yeah, we love Grogu, but we don't want to watch hours of that.
And the issue, I think, becomes when you look at who is your prime target audience for this. Who are the people that are most likely going to buy tickets and run out to the theaters when they hear of IP being used like Venom and Carnage? 30-something millennials. That's a slam dunk. From a marketing standpoint, that is literally a slam dunk. I get it. You want to also market and advertise and direct yourself towards the younger audience and get some of that new blood into the fandom and all of that kind of stuff. Great. I 100% support that. But you had mentioned, Josh, that there's a whole generation of us that grew up with the 90s Spider-Man the animated series. And even that was still, toned down from what it is in the comics, but still in that kind of spirit. Because like I told you, Josh, before we started recording, I don't see a world, hot take, I don't see a world where you can do Carnage with anything less than an R rating. Not and hold any kind of a semblance to the source material, because he got his name for a reason.
He got Spider-Man, the animated movie, Venom vs. Carnage.
But yeah, as far as that goes, like I think that it was using characters. It was disappointing to me because it was using characters that have enough substance in storyline and weight to them that you can build an entire franchise around these characters. These should be the start of your new MCU, but instead we got a miscasting for one of them. I'll say it. I don't think Woody Harrelson was ever the right choice for Cletus Cassidy for a variety of reasons.
That was the best part of the movie for me.
Oh, woof. Because that's... The problem is Carnage should be considerably smaller than Eddie, and just not like, yes, I get it. He's got that crazy in his eyes, and Woody Harrelson can act certain scenes like only Woody Harrelson can. But he's schlocky in my opinion. Like if what you're looking for, and I think I said this to you, Josh, if what you're looking for is to create a new Universal monster movie out of Carnage, then 100% Carnage or Venom 2 is your movie. Then it's aces. Then you've done it to a T. But that was the name Carnage, but that was not, for either side, the Cletus Cassidy side or the Carnage side, anything resembling that actual character.
Yeah. So a couple things. So first, let me be transparent before I start throwing other things out there and asking y'all some questions. First, I want to throw out there that the only exposure I've really had to Carnage in the comics are like secondary stories. Like I have Deadpool versus Carnage on my bookshelf over there, but I don't have any Carnage comics, or really, I don't even think I have Spider-Man with Carnage comics. Like I just haven't really particularly cared about him from that aspect. So I know him from some side stories, then the animated TV show, and that's it. So Joe is absolutely the expert. That being said, the one thing I really liked about the movie was Carnage and Cassidy were creepy. Like they were actually creepy. Mm-hmm. The rest of the movie was just super off to me. Mm-hmm. But that being said, what Joe, what you're getting at, and this is what I kind of think too, and then I have a question for you too. It feels like what you're getting at is they tried to make a movie that was both for beginners who have no idea who these people are, and also for people who have been super familiar with these stories forever. And by trying to do both, they ended up making one that's not for either of those audiences. Neither of them can relate to this movie. But which sounds like we're batching it. It wasn't a bad movie. I enjoyed
disagree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. I thought it was a bad movie.
It was just confusing. They didn't answer enough.
I had fun though. That was the thing. Like I still had fun watching this.
Venom is funny.
It wasn't a great plot. A lot of the stuff was messed up, but it was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, that I can agree with the sentiment that if what you're looking for all of you comic book nerds out there, seriously, shut off your comic book big brain for a minute and go in and watch this movie. Then if you're just looking for a popcorn flick, aces, great, wonderful. Like go ahead, go watch a popcorn flick. Absolutely. But if you go in there with any kind of expectation or preconceived notion because of the characters that are being used, you are going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question I want to throw to both of y'all, and then we should go ahead and give our ratings for the episode, for the movie, rather than continuing to say that all these terrible things about it. Because it was fun. It was fun, guys. Listen to me. It was fun. I just also didn't like it. Oh, man. So my question I want to ask you guys is, I want to see if you guys got the same feeling. It really felt like all throughout the movie, they were like, here's a hint of something we're going to do. Like they kept hinting at different things and like putting like little like strings that it was like, oh, they can build something off of this. And then in that after credit scene, which was the best part of the whole movie, when they trash everything. It's like, hey, we're going to build a whole universe here. Psych, this universe is gone. Did y'all kind of got the same feeling with that? Like,
yeah,
like, what?
I got that feeling. It was, I don't know, like that end credit scene. I just had even more questions because it's like, first of all, why does he have a target for Spider-Man? And two, what does he hope to achieve? Because Spider-Man and Doctor Strange already wrecked it by that point. I feel like with the shaking, I feel like that's when the universe just cracks.
Hot take, since the movie hasn't come out yet and everyone can hear me be either surprisingly right or most likely wrong, I don't think either of them messed up the multiverse. I think what happened with the Lokis or some other character actually messed up the multiverse. So in the commercial, when Doctor Strange is like, "No, stop! You're going to mess it up," he was not talking to Spider-Man. That's my take.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, maybe. And I've heard that theory elsewhere. And out of the grouping of them, I think that's probably the most thought out of any of them. As far as like, is it Doctor Strange that's at fault? Is it Peter that's at fault? Is it Loki that's at fault? Is it whatever?
You know who I want to be at fault?
100% is Loki's fault. 100%. I'm still mad.
I want it to be. Listen, I desperately want it to be Madam Web. If you know, you know.
Oh, bro. There we go. Yes, that would be great. We need some Madam Web. Could you imagine? I can't think of the name.
Who is Madam Web?
Meryl Streep. Could you imagine Madam Web played by Meryl Streep? Dude, that would be amazing.
Yo, so Alex asked who Madam Web is. Could you please explain to her and anyone else who's listening who might not know? Because I feel like you probably know better than I. I know her from the show.
Well, that's where she's most known from. She doesn't play nearly as big of a... So basically, everything that Madam Web is in the show is the Beyonder in the comics. But with Madam Web, she's an omnipotent old lady that comes out of nowhere and basically controls all of the Spider Universe, multiverse stuff. That is a super... boiled down version. Now, without going into all of the, there's a multiverse of Spider-Man, and they're, in one multiverse, it was Uncle Ben that got the spider powers. In one, it was a pig that got the spider powers. And so on and so forth.
Spider Pig. Sorry.
Right. Which I will eternally be a little salty at Into the Spider-Verse for not doing Madam Web, because that was literally your perfect shot to do Madam Web.
Right. I love her.
Yeah. So basically she is your story. She is the bouncing ball in the 90s cartoon. Like, for most people, they know her as the narrative bouncing ball. For the back half, when they really start to delve into crossover stuff and multiverse stuff and all of that in the animated TV show in the 90s, she's kind of your reliable narrator of the continuous episode.
This is not what the show's about, so this will be my last 2 cents on this. Here's how it could fit. All right, here's how it could fit. Madam Web has said that there has to be a Spider-Man in every universe. Clearly, the Venom universe does not have a Spider-Man. She might be trying to rectify that.
I want you to know that is officially headcanon now for me. 100% that's headcanon now.
I want that to be what's happening.
Bro, chef's kiss. That was
chef's kiss.
Phenomenal.
I hope that's what they do. If it is, Marvel, Disney, y'all might owe me.
Right? You heard it here first.
These ideas for free.
Oh man, that is great.
Okay, so let's go ahead and let's give our ratings for this. Sorry, I got lost here. Okay, let's go ahead and give our ratings for this. I'll go first because I feel like I need to explain my rating system, because I got some flack for how I rated Revenge of the Sith.
That's because you did it wrong.
I did not. Listen, okay. For me, my whole rating system is based off of one very simple metric. A 5 would mean if I went on to Netflix and just picked a random movie with my eyes closed, I'm equally as likely to find something I would like more or less than that movie. So my whole system is based off of that. A 5 would be just that. So the higher the number, the less likely I am to find something randomly that I would enjoy more. And the lower, the more likely I am to find something I would enjoy more. So for this, I'm going to give 5.5, just because I think there is a slight chance that if I picked something at random, I would enjoy this more than that. But only a slight chance. Because I just enjoy most movies. Alex? 0 to 10.
Oh, wow. I don't know. I was thinking like 6.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah, I was thinking 6. It was okay. Could have been better.
All right. Now for the real critic, Joe. Where are you going here? The one who knows
I'll
the
give it
material.
I'll give it a 4. And the only reason why I would give it a 4, and even that high, is I have a hard time showing any kind of shade to Tom Hardy because of just... So for those of you that don't know, and I feel like everybody knows this, but he plays both Eddie and Venom. And he actually, in the sound booth, there's video of him with earbuds in. He records Venom first, and then will play back Venom and respond in a way like as if he's actually having that conversation. So like there's effort and process put into all of this. So for me, I gotta show some love to that. So maybe if I'm feeling generous on a particular day, it might get a 5. But from a story standpoint, for what they did with the characters, for what they did with that post-credit scene, because for me, the only way that post-credit scene gets redeemed, because now they're bringing a whole mess of baggage into the MCU. I would rather them kick out Tom Holland, make him Sony Spider-Man, recast Spider-Man for the MCU, so that way they can put thought and effort into all of these different characters rather than slapdashing them all together. But so
Spider-Man is so good.
Right. Well, keep him as Sony Spider-Man and
but Sony movies are so bad.
Well, I mean, then they shouldn't be allowed to dilute the effort that's been put into the MCU. I'm just saying.
I agree. Disney buy Sony. This is my second idea you're getting for free. Man, I should be on staff.
Right. For me, the only way that gets redeemed is if No Way Home is low-key their way of telling us, hey, this is Tom Holland's last MCU flick. We're now taking him back over into this box because, as per contract, from what is public information will say, is that this is Tom Holland's last film with Marvel. Was Endgame. So that, or not, it wasn't Endgame. It's this one. So this may be their way of writing him out of the greater MCU. So to me, setting that up is probably the best case scenario for the overall, future of both franchises. But yeah, like I said, 4 out of 10, even by your metrics, Josh, I would say that more often than not, I would very much be inclined to think that I would find something that I would enjoy more than that.
Yeah. Again, I just want to reiterate my problem with Tom Holland and Spider-Man going to Sony. Sony makes bad movies. Yeah. I can't think of a Sony movie that I really like. That's all. Continue.
I do have a question, though.
Yeah.
About Carnage. Like, why are red ones scary?
Yeah. Okay. So even I don't know that one.
Because, that was probably the biggest question out of the whole movie that I just couldn't, let go of. Like, the way Venom reacted to seeing Carnage. He's like, yo, we're going to die. That's a red one. We're dead. Okay. And I was like, okay, but why?
Right.
Why is he worse? And why does Carnage keep calling Venom father?
Because so this is a great point to segue over into the comic book side and why so much of this, why I say what I say as far as my rating goes. So in the comics, Venom is the first symbiote that we are introduced to. And there's a famous scene, if you've ever seen the 90s show, if you saw Spider-Man 3, it was kind of part of it was recreated with the bell tower scene, all of this where you have Eddie Brock, who's introduced to the symbiote, not any semblance of a good guy. He's in prison with Cletus, like maximum security prison with Cletus Cassidy when they first meet. So it's not like anybody's he wasn't a guest of the government or whatever. He was a prisoner when they first met. So not a good guy. And he is broken out of prison by basically by Venom and the power of the Beyonder, if I remember correctly. And while all of this is happening, a part of Venom leaks out and onto Cletus Cassidy, and symbiotes reproduce asexually. And so he technically reproduced, and hence you got Carnage. And the only reason why Carnage is red is because it got into Cletus's bloodstream. So because it's in his bloodstream, they're more inherently bonded. Remember, symbiotes are parasites.
So they're more bonded? They're not less bonded, as in what happens with this movie, but they're extra bonded.
They are so, and this actually goes into one of the biggest problems that I had with the way that they presented those two in the comics. If ever you hear Carnage refer to itself, it always says I, because Cletus Cassidy and Carnage, the Carnage symbiote, which has its own mind and its own personality, they view themselves as one being, fully assimilated into one another. For all of you Star Trek fans, think the Borg. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Like
the Doctor Who fans.
Right. They are a part of the greater hive mind. Venom always refers to itself as we, because they never, Eddie and Venom always keep that distance from one another, where they are two separate people, because otherwise you get murderous rampage Venom. And that's part of what that's why I say that the first one was better, because the first movie at least touched on that inner turmoil that eventually we see out of Eddie Brock, who wants to try and see that gradual arc towards anti-hero and all of that kind of stuff that we eventually got after decades of material, where you saw Eddie want to keep those murderous urges at bay and things like that, and they couldn't become one complete entity. But when talking about the symbiotes themselves, to answer your question, it's because technically Carnage is the offspring of Venom. But they did not, and that was part of the wanting to cater to comic book fans, but not actually catering to comic book fans portion of the whole thing.
Mm. So basically, that whole ending where we beat Carnage because we're better friends was just complete and utter bull.
Yeah.
So not only was it cheesy and lame, it was also just inaccurate from the source material. Great.
Even then, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it was so cheesy. I couldn't. I hate endings like that. I also hate that Carnage was just killed. That was stupid. Okay, so Joe, this question will lead you into the comic book stuff, and I know we're about to wrap up after that, but I have to know. And this has become Josh and Alex Ask Joe stuff. This is Ask Joe segment. So I always got the feel, and maybe it's because the animated show, and I have really old comics of Spider-Man and Venom, but I always got the feel that Venom's origin was almost had a religious tint to it, because the scene at the church, or because Spider-Man's literally just so much angst, and there's so much actual going on within him that it felt more inwards and almost spiritual, but not quite spiritual. Whereas these movies make it feel a lot more from the beginning, Venom was just alien, which I know he is an alien, but am I wrong about that whole almost religious vibe to his origins?
So it's more in a holistic sense, you're looking at more of a morality tale than a spiritual tale. From everything that early foundational Peter Parker, the stuff that that everything that we have now is based off of, including what they've done recently in the comics with the King in Black series. All of that stuff has all been a coming of age tale. That's why Spider-Man is the number one and remains the number one best-selling IP ever created in comics. The only one to beat out Batman. Because he's written in a way that anybody who's looking to read a coming of age tale will in some way, shape, or form relate to this. You know what I mean? So that I get what you're getting at, and at times it can hedge towards that kind of spiritual sort of dynamic, but really it's more of a morality tale. And a quick did you know topic, you had said as far as Venom being completely alien, Eddie Brock is not the first host for Venom. Spider-Man is. That's actually why Venom has the spider on his chest and why Venom can shoot webs, because it takes on characteristics of the host. So
that was another thing I always thought was weird with this. Like, it's hard to have Venom without Spider-Man because that's not how the story goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to pose the question. When it comes to these anti-heroes and things like that, we'll start with you, Alex. Can you have an anti-hero that Christians can root for, or is that wrong because they're technically part villain?
That's a good question. And I don't know. I want to say, I guess it depends on the anti-hero you're talking about. And like what they do and things. Like for Venom's case, I don't know. Like, I find myself rooting for him because like their goal is to like be protector for mankind. But like the way they go about it though is not cool, like eating people's heads and things like that. So I don't know. I guess it just depends on like what the anti-hero does morally.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense, I don't know.
Yeah. So let me say that I'm speaking from absolutely no authority whatsoever. But here's my 2 cents. I feel like it's okay to cheer for the outcome, if that makes sense. Like I'm cheering for God to do his will, but not necessarily for the character itself, right? We have a problem, especially in American politics today, not to get political, but yeah, where a lot of people are just like, this is what I wanted, so I'm okay with anything that it took to get here. And I don't think it's okay to have that kind of attitude, because it's not. Sometimes it's okay to get a bad outcome to do things correctly. But also, sometimes you're just like, hey, this is messed up, God. If you could do something about it, and we can't question, what's the Bible verse that what the enemy meant for evil, God means for good, right? So I'm like, I'm cheering for God, not necessarily Venom. If God decides to use Venom, sure, whatever. Yeah. What about you, Joe? What do you think?
So I am inclined to go with something that I talk a lot about on Buddy Walk, is that God is a God of gray area, right? Like there is no such thing as total one way or the other, and I mean that for both sides. I mean there's no such thing as total legality, and there's no such thing as total depravity. So to me, I think in different ways, we are all anti-heroes. Should we be cheering people on to go kill people in the name of the good of the few outweighs the needs of, or the needs of the few outweigh the good of the many? No, like that's not, I think that all of those types of mentalities are born of the world. But the problem is that when we try sometimes to separate sin from sinner, we just throw everything out and call it good. And I'm not trying to, because I myself have my own group of people, right? My own subtype of humans where I'm like, nah, you you stay over there and I'm good. You know what I mean? Go in peace, but go away. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Which is not actual grace or anything like that. So the levels of grace that we are called and the levels of support and love that we are called to show are inconceivable by man. That is exactly why we need grace. That is exactly why we need the cross. We are all the criminal. Every single one of us is the criminal. And so I think part of what you said, Josh, rings very, very true, that in all of this, we need to be pursuing the kingdom and pushing forward God, right? But I think part of that is supporting the use of the broken toys by God. And I want to point to a scripture verse here, 2 Kings 14:26 and 27. For the Lord saw the affliction of Israel, which was very bitter, for there was neither bond nor free, nor was there any helper for Israel. The Lord did not say that he would blot out the name of Israel from under heaven, but he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam, the son of Joash. So for a quick super Reader's Digest version, because there's a lot of context to Israel's story that goes into this. But Jeroboam was not a good man. He was a wicked king. The Bible portrays him as just like the first Jeroboam and as the one who raised conflict and division and strife and all of these things, right? That as Christians, we're not called to be partaking in or to put forward or anything like that. So we need to remember that sometimes, well, I should say it like this. We need to remember that we are all broken toys. The whole toy box is broken. And we need to be cool with the fact that God does in fact use the broken toys out of the toy box, because that all of them are broken. And understanding that that's cool, that we need to make sure that we're not throwing away, the people that are rough around the edges, the people, those kinds of people because of, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's all of us. I like what you said. We're all the anti-hero in at least some way. Yeah. Yeah. Like, because if you really think about it, all of us killed at least one person to be the good guy. And that would be Jesus. So that's pretty bad murder rep for all of us, I'd say.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like that's a weird way to think of it. Alex, did you have any other takes on just kind of the biblical passage on that?
Not really. No, you guys hit everything.
What you mean?
That could have been a sermon.
This was honestly me and Alex interviewed Joe in disguise. We let him think he was hosting the podcast, but really we wanted to ask him questions.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Joe. All right. So with that being said, then bring on the drum roll for the wrap up. This is the wrap up. First thing we like to do is just kind of leave you guys with a recommendation. My recommendation is going to be pretty simple. That comic I mentioned earlier, Carnage versus Deadpool, it's honestly one of the funniest things you'll read, and it's totally worth it. Yeah. So, Joe, did you have a recommendation for everybody?
So in light of what we've been talking about, I would suggest that you guys check out the 90s TV show for seriously the definitive take on Carnage and Venom both. But for reading material, Maximum Carnage. It gets a little gore-tastic at points and things like that. There is, viewer discretion is advised sort of thing, but definitely a very, very solid story.
Alex?
My recommendation has nothing to do with the Spider-Man world at all, but perfect. I was just saying, watch Squid Game. I mean, it's a lot, so it's not for the faint of heart, but if you like intense things, Squid Game, it's for you. So
interesting. I haven't seen that one yet, so I don't have a comment.
I haven't finished it, but so far it's good.
Nice. So that being said, again, I'm Joshua. I do a podcast with one of our other co-hosts, TJ Blackwell. It's called The Whole Church Podcast. You can find it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you get podcasts, all the good stuff.
You can find me pretty much everywhere on socials and things like that at Buddy Walk with Jesus. That's the other show that I co-host. Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at CocoBean19, but the E's like a 3. So I don't know why it's like that. I should probably change it. But yeah, CocoBean19 on Instagram. Mm-hmm.
Nice. And next week, we will be talking about Dune, the new movie coming up, with hosts Pastor Will Rose, TJ Blackwell, and Brandon Knight. Go to our website in the description to let us know what you've been geeking out on and what we should be. And remember, we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests. This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries podcast network.